We live? Well, it is 6:30, so I call this meeting of the Sturgis Common Council to order. Already May 1st, 2023. First item's approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
We got a first by Kevin,
Second.
second by Tony. Any discussion? All those in favor of the agenda, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. We've got an agenda. Please stand, remove cover, and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item 3 is informational reports, and on this meeting this time, we have no informational reports included. Item 4 is announcements and praise. I'd like to take a moment, praise our Heavenly Father, if you'd like to join me. Sovereign Lord, we just thank you for your plan. We thank you for loving us as we are. May we find guidance and wisdom from you and in your word. I truly pray for our community. I pray for our country. I pray we can stand up for the national anthem and kneel to the cross. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Item 4.1 is an exciting bit of information that's been a lot of work to this point, and it continues as we take the next step. But tomorrow will be the day the city manager recruitment process begins, and we will open up. We will have the information on our website. Item 4.2, I'm going to turn it over to Faye for this one. All right, Faye, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is kind of a happy or sad part of my life, but I did want to have decided to retire on February 15th, 2024. I think it would be advantageous to ease the functioning of the city to open the finance officer position in-house for 2 weeks and see if we have any viable applicants. I would like to be able to assist in training and transition of this position for the next 9.5 months. I would like to thank the current and past mayors and councilors for allowing me to be the finance officer since 2007. Sturgis is an awesome place to work, and it has been a great 16 years for me.
Thanks, Faye. Certainly bittersweet for sure, and we'll continue the process as we move forward, and we'll have some celebrations as the time comes. So,
Right.
thanks,
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for all you've done. On a similar note, Maxine Cordes is retiring from the community center. She's been there since November of 1992, so certainly commitment for that. Congratulations for that, and appreciate all the service, Maxine. The public is invited to attend her retirement party, which is Wednesday, May 10th, and I believe it's from 10 to noon. Do I know that yet? Did I see that somewhere? Yep. I think I'm accurate there. Item 4.4 is a slight change in a process with which we've also been working very hard on. The plan was to initially have the first concept meeting for the aquatics park to go on tonight. There's still work being done, and we're not quite ready to bring that to that step. We're shooting for May 15th, the next meeting 2 weeks from now, and believe it'll be something we can work out and bring forward the next step. Item 5, I'll let councilors add any announcements and praise you so desire.
I'd like to wish happy birthday to Councilor.
Angela's birthday today, so
22 again.
Well, I wanted to spend it. Yes, exactly.
anything else from council? Item 5 is department update, and we get the ambulance tonight. So Shauna is coming forward with a lot of information, and it too is an ongoing, very large project. So over to you, ma'am.
She chose guest before. The same one.
That was your job.
And I can't do it. That's why I'm here. Yeah, it's just.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and community members. I'm Sean Fisher, the Sturgis Ambulance Director. And there, is that better?
Got a green light?
It's green. Okay. Okay. I welcome anyone to stop me during this presentation if you have any questions at all. I want to apologize for the length of it, but this is my one chance to make everyone understand truly what goes into an ambulance service and how it functions. I believe that a lot of individuals do not understand ambulance services and how they operate. An individual said it today, perfect. He said a lot of individuals believe that ambulance services are businesses and that you pay for what you get. Anyone that is in the healthcare profession knows that's not the case. There is write-offs, there are things you cannot charge for, and all of those. So, I'm going to show you a puzzle here, and my goal is to show you all the puzzle pieces that it goes into forming the ambulance service that serves your community and the Meade County. First, we're going to talk about our staffing. The skill level comparison that we're going to look at here, I think is going to come to a surprise to a lot of people. I think a lot of people think how we hear it a lot is you're an ambulance driver. Here's your skill comparison. As a Sturgis paramedic, we can do everything in the field that a lot of doctors do in the ERs. I don't think that a lot of people stop and think about when seconds matter, you're not probably in an ER. You're at home, you're alongside the road, you're at a function. So your Sturgis paramedics are those that are there to do everything we can to get you to a hospital to get you stabilized. When you look down here, you're going to see that a Sturgis paramedic can do what a nurse can, what a respiratory therapist can, and what a doctor does. Yes, the doctors write our protocols, but we are the ones that have to decide in the field what to do with those protocols and what medication to give. We have to have the training to read 12 leads, decide if someone's having a heart attack, decide if someone has a heart block, and decide what medication to give. We don't have a doctor there telling us on scene what to do there. So I just sort of want everyone to look at the skills comparison and the wage comparison. And that is why EMS is suffering throughout our nation, not just here for help. Next, this is our current staffing. We do have 5 critical care paramedics. This is very important because our critical care paramedics we can charge for when we go on calls with a ventilator, with blood running, with numerous meds running, and that gives more money back to the service as a whole. Our employee status right now is we have 6 EMS full-time employees, 3 billing CHW EMS, we have 1 part-time billing, and then we have 26 PRN. Those PRN have not been held to a standard that we're going to implement this year, that they work 16 hours a month or they will go off our roster. So we just feel that is best for everyone involved. Our current schedule looks at 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have 2 people on. 2 additional people come in from 8 to 4, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. During the day, we have 1 CHW in-house, and we have 2 to 3 billing people in-house. Next, these are some changes that we have done within the service to try to make it run smoother. And I want to thank each and every one of you that helped with the Class B retirement. It did go through after quite a bit of work through legislation this year, and it will be implemented on July 1st. We have moved to a new schedule at the station, 36 on, 108 off. This is a change from the amount of time our staff has to travel, as 75% of them do not live in Sturgis. Changes we need to look at are we're struggling to find EMTs. When I was here probably 3 years ago, our crew was mainly EMTs. But with the pay that everyone, you can go to McDonald's and make what you can after going to EMT classes for 6 months, passing a national test in that. So we're also losing paramedics to other professions and other agencies when you can go to nursing school and make twice as much as you make as a paramedic. So those are some of the things within this station that we are struggling with right now. Responses. And this is, I think, where a lot of people have misconception. They figure that you responded to 701 patients this year, that you're being paid for them 701 patients. That is not the case at all. Out of those 701, only 369 were transported. Those are the only ones we can bill for. We did start implementing a $250 lift assist after, I think that was 2 years ago, you guys approved that. Most of those bills are at collections because insurance does not pay that. So these are responses. As you can see, last year we only had 927 responses out of 2,956 calls. When we respond to a car wreck or any of that, if someone does not get transported from that car wreck, we cannot bill anybody. We did start the SMART program, and that is helping with some of the refusals. You'll see in the slides when we start talking about that a good example of that. Just some overhead that we have here at the station all the time. For a new ambulance, the cost right now is $180,000, or a remount, sorry. And that's what we have done for the last 2 ambulances we've gotten. A new ambulance is $250,000, and that is the bare necessities on an ambulance. We currently have 5 ambulances on our fleet. Our command units are hand-me-downs, all been patrol cars. So we appreciate Jody doing that for us, but they're just not reliable to go to an intercept and ending or do that. We received an ATV on a grant. We've used that on numerous city and county calls. It works very well if we go up to the dams or something when someone's stuck up there. We've also received a grant for training and equipment by having the bus. We are currently looking for a new bus and looking for a grant to function that. So we'll be continuing that. This is just the cost of things in the back of an ambulance. And like I just said, we have 5 ambulances, so you have this amount of equipment in the back of every ambulance. We are very fortunate. On Wednesday this week, we'll be going to Rapid City. Governor Noem gave every ambulance service in the state a new life pack for every ambulance they had. Meaning we'll be getting 6 new life packs because it's time we had 6 ambulances. So that'll be a huge contribution to our service. The SMART program, that's a state community healthcare worker program that we started about 1.5 years ago. It stands for Sturgis Mobile Response Team. The CHW is a South Dakota organization that was started in 2022 by the Department of Health and the EMS office. They are a frontline public health care worker who goes out into the homes, is how we do it. Not all CHWs do. Some CHWs just work in the hospitals. We feel like we need the picture of what's going on at home and that. We were established in June of 2022. We've seen over 20 clients, approximately 230 visits. We go into their homes. We look for safety hazards. We look for things that might be endangering them. One individual, we went in, and her pills were literally everywhere in her house. They were in her microwave. They were in her plants. She said she would just get frustrated with all the pills and just hit them off of the table. So we were able to go in, get her in, hooked up with county drug, get her medications and that. Right now we have one CHW who is Marissa. Hallie and I have been going to school for the last 5 months. We will be done on Wednesday and graduating from Lake Area Botech. We get a $50,000 grant every year for this program. we have been told that we will be getting it for the next year also. So we will be receiving the money in May, and then in July they will renew our grant, so we'll be getting another $50,000. So that helps out. The reason for that funding is because right now Medicaid is the only one reimbursing. They reimburse $75 for 16 to 45 minutes, $150 if you go over the 45 minutes. I am on the board for CHWs, and we were working with Blue Cross of South Dakota, Sanford, and Avera to start reimbursing. Blue Cross, who is Wellmark, already reimburses in 3 other states. So we feel like that shouldn't be hard to work with. This is an example of what our SMART program did for this individual. We had a total of 28 calls to this individual from 2018 to May of 2022. She had $4,196.40 in ambulance bills. 1,205 were lift assists, totaling her bill to $5,446.40. The lift assists are currently at collections. We have not gotten anything from them. We started seeing this patient in June of 2022. Shouldn't say 23. Since that time, we have had 1 ambulance call there. 1 call. And the day we went in, she got out of the hospital. They told her, prior to us saying we would take her as a patient, that she would never come home. She would be going to a nursing home. She is at home getting around perfect and everything. And she has been in our ambulance 1 time as she called 911 for us. So, and that's what I've heard is, well, the SMART program isn't, financing itself. If we look at the bottom line of we're not having to send an ambulance out there for 28 times, it is financing itself. It's helping our community and it's helping our ambulance. This is the state poster they are releasing on the 13th Sioux Falls. Our program is one of the best in the state. We have been approached by numerous individuals from other areas asking us how we do our program. We were approached from, I can't think of his last name right now, his first name is Matt. He's releasing a grant to work on overdoses. We'll be an overdose response team. And the state told him if anyone could handle it, to call the SMART program. They would do it. What this overdose team will be is if somebody has overdosed in our area, we will go out there and get them hooked up with Narcan through the pharmacy. We'll get them into classes and that. Through that, we get $120,000 a year for this grant. So I cannot say enough good about the girls and everything they've done with this program. It is something that's huge for our community. Also, I'm sure Mark has heard me talk about community paramedicine numerous times. I have been talking at the legislative breakfast probably for the last 6 years about this. Finally, this year, House Bill 1059 was passed and community paramedicine was recognized in the state. We are probably the only ambulance service that have 2 community paramedics that are certified with a college certificate. So this will be huge for us. We were contacted by the state Medicaid and EMS office on Friday for us to help set the reimbursement for this program. This is another program that will be huge for our community. An example of this is on Friday we had an individual who had a UTI. A UTI, a urinary tract infection. She usually calls the ambulance for us to take her in because she cannot get to the hospital any other way. That is not medically necessary if there's another mode of transportation because you're not bed confined. So we were able to go out, take the UA, get the UA. She did have a UTI. Dr. Mueller ordered a shot to be given. Instead of having to transport her to the hospital and back home, we were able to go out to the house and do that shot for her. And with this program being approved now, we'll be reimbursed for that. I wanted to talk a little bit about other income. This is the other income's necessary to help sustain the ambulance service. There's just no other way around it. I've been here since 2013, and we've had to do something to make sure we're there. So we have done the contracts outside. We do fundraising, and I believe we're one of the only departments within the city that has to do fundraising to be sustainable. We do the Monument Health Respiratory Standby. We do over 3,000 hours this, but we are paid a set amount. If we never go to that hospital, we still get our $2,625 a month. And that is just to be on standby for them because they do not have another respiratory therapist to do that. Which it is an advantage to us because most of the time when somebody needs respiratory therapy, they're going on to Rapid and we're going to be treating them anyways. So that's very important for us. Meade County Jail, I can be blamed for this one. I saw a job opening and thought, hey, we have a nurse as me and we can go past meds. 3 times a day, the crew's sitting at the station when they're not on calls. And so that's why we do that one there. This is the other income. Oh, sorry, it didn't line up right. Monument Health, we get $31,500 annually. Meade County Jail, $87,000. Most of you know we're doing the Chase the Ace right now. And if the pot was to go out tonight, the ambulance service would get $20,000. Meade County Rural Tax District, $64,000. Lawrence County, that's for going up in the canyon, 1,208. And then something new to bring more cash in, we were just trying to find ways to do it, is we're doing drug testing now. So now the city of Sturgis individuals do not have to go to the to the clinic or any of that, or Adam down here doesn't do it. They can come up to the ambulance hall, and we have 6 certified individuals that can do the drug testing. We're looking at outsourcing that, or not outsourcing, we are looking at going outside of the city and getting other agencies that need to do it. Mark Air, we just spoke with them, and they literally have to drive everyone to Deadwood because Deadwood has someone that has a contract with them, and they said they would gladly contract with us. So we're looking at more of those examples. This is the part that if anybody has a question on this, please ask. This is what I think a lot of people do not understand, and this is why ambulance services across the nation are struggling right now and are closing their doors. This is a Medicare patient. We responded to them. We were on scene or with the patient for 61 minutes. We used oxygen, IV, we checked the blood sugar. Total bill was $968. Medicare paid $325.82. Medicaid, the secondary insurance, paid $83.12. And we had to write $559.06 off. That is a mandatory write-off. You cannot argue with Medicare or Medicaid, the federal regulations on that. That is something we have to write off. And I think that has been a misconception because I've heard, well, you're not billing right. You need to collect that whole amount. We shouldn't be writing stuff off. You do not have a choice there. Just like hospitals don't have a choice about writing theirs off. The next patient was a total of, sorry, this got messed up, $1,517.70. We had to write off $822 of it. So we are not receiving that money that is billed out all the time. Oh, I guess here it is, good. Sorry. So here you can see that how much we're writing off. On those 2 bills right there, we wrote over $1,300 off. We are in the middle of Medicare cost reporting. We have went to the federal, the CMS, and they've decided to do a cost reporting on ambulance services. Anybody look it up can go ahead and look it up online. They will collect data for 4 years. We are in year 3, which means January 24, we have to start submitting all of our data. That includes how many hours we're on a call, how many miles are on our ambulances, all of that. And it's very important for this because this is where we're going to get that Medicare reimbursement raised. So it's very important that we have accurate numbers throughout this. Medicaid, these are two examples of a Medicaid bill. We responded to this call 90 minutes for 2 crews. We had oxygen, total miles on the ambulance 34.6. Total bill $1,004. We received $202. We had to write off $801.04 that we cannot collect from anyone. The other one was a $1,358 bill. We got paid $288. We had to write off $1,069. There is absolutely no way that an ambulance service can be sustainable with those kind of reimbursements. I know that in my weekly report I talked about Medicaid supplemental payment program. This is something that has been in South Dakota for about 5 years, but when all the healthcare facilities did it, they left ambulance services out of it. So we have contacted PCG. They're a consulting company. The South Dakota Ambulance Association signed a contract with them in February of last year. We sent numbers into them. Our preliminary numbers for 2021, we would have received $150,000 in a supplemental payment. So we are working on that. The only problem is it's only for public, meaning city-owned and hospital-owned ambulance services. So there isn't a lot of people really pushing for it. So I've been trying to do that, but with having to run calls and that, just haven't had the time with the staffing and that. So I did talk to him last week. We're trying to get a meeting hopefully within the next month, and we'll be moving ahead on that. I don't know if anybody has seen this before. There is a change forthcoming with the VA payments. In February of next year, the VA will be going to pay Medicaid rates. Anybody can help write letters against this. We have wrote numerous letters as an ambulance association. I've sent letters from the ambulance service. This will be just another blockage that we have for ambulance services to be sustainable. I wanted to talk about Aetna a little bit. This is a popular insurance company here that people have here in Sturgis. On this $962 bill, it's just about like Medicaid. We got paid $260, and we had to write $702 off. So, I just wanted to give you some examples. And now Sanford, this is why we have the rates we have. Every January, Helly, myself, and Nellie go through and we find out what insurance companies are reimbursing. So we make sure that we're not leaving any money on the table. Meaning that if we have one Sanford patient and we only were charging $9 a mile, that's all they would pay. So they pay 100%. That is what they're approved. So that's why we have the rates we have, is so we don't leave any money on the table with any insurance companies. This, I could not get that current balance off of the top, sorry. This is our current accounts receivable right off of our image trend. That is our billing company. So you can see here that VA owes $406,000. We've got quite a bit at collections. So I just wanted to give you an idea of where our accounts receivable are. The billing process. I've been, I don't know, not talked to, but I've had a few comments about, well, we need to get the billing process under control. The billing process, when it gets to billing, it happens. But we are not going to allow a bill or a report to go to billing until it is good. I don't want to be in front of a judge, and I don't want one of my staff members in front of a judge with a report they might have misspelled a word in, forgot something. So the responder writes a report. It goes through QA, which is our quality assurance. If any changes need to be done, it goes back to the person to rewrite it. Hallie then goes into image trend and moves it over. When she's doing this, she also goes into Epic, that we've worked with Monument and got sign-ins for them, and we are able to get all the insurance information. This has been a great tool for us and has increased our income or our income a lot because we know the correct insurance. Once Nellie gets it on her desk, she goes through the ICD-10 codes and bills it out, showing medical necessity. I then have to send it into EDI payments. It'll have any denials, I go through, figure out what that is, all of that. Any that need to go paper that are not set up electronically, Nellie will do paper claims for those. Our payments are received here at City Hall. We're sent checks. If they're electronic payments, I download the EDI, I put it on the account, all of that. Hallie manually enters all other payments into Billing Bridge and sends out co-pay bills and files. Other duties involved in the billing is we refile when insurance has not paid. We do appeals when insurance denies it. We have to keep all files on hand for 10 years. And then we audit the files on a regular basis. I would like to, I gave each of you a packet, and anybody here from the community, there's packets on the counter. With me running calls and stuff, I've not got EMS week out like it should be. But I would like to personally invite each and every one of you to all of our events. We're having an open house on Monday the 22nd. We'd love to have you guys at a Battle of the Blood Drive. Sanford will be here doing heart screenings. Tuesday, we're doing cardboard boat races at the Sturgis Community Center. And Wednesday, we'll be having Songs and Sirens on Main Street. So I'd like to personally invite all of you to that. Future of EMS. Ambulance services are not essential. There's nowhere in the state of South Dakota that says each city or county has to have one. Thus, no one thinks about an ambulance service, I don't think, until you actually need one. All of us expect an ambulance service to be there. If we fall down, if we have a stroke, heart attack, any of that, we expect an ambulance to be there. We've lost New Underwood Ambulance about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. Wall is on the verge of closing. They're open for another, I think it's 3 months. And we can sit here and say, well, that's not us. But how many of us travel I-90? That is us. When Ending was closed, it's all over. And the state, they have hired a company out of Texas to come in and do a regional service designation, initial observation. These are the notes that they sent me this morning. I told them I was presenting to you guys, and I wanted to know how to get across to people that we have a problem in South Dakota and that we have to figure it out. These are the notes that he sent me. Their initial observation, our agencies are very significantly statewide. Most volunteers don't exist anymore. They've had to move to paid. Inner facilities are hard to staff. They're a lot. No one wants to just drive down the road. You want to go somewhere where your adrenaline's going to get going. Lack of partnership with air providers to use ground ambulances when weather impacts it. Communities with local college EMS courses have less staffing issues, meaning when you have a course here in town, they're riding with you when they're taking their class. Then they end up being employed with you. That's difficult. So, South Dakota versus nation. National shortage of paramedics is affecting everyone. This last year, 2 ambulance services closed in Montana just because they don't have the staffing and the reimbursement. We're working on a South Dakota planning grant opportunity to hopefully keep some services open. These are the key assumptions and metrics that the state is working on. Number of ambulance providers is decreasing as agencies close. Number of volunteers are decreasing. Inter-facility transports are delayed. There's no guarantee the ambulance will be available in emergency. I am ashamed to say that we have had 2 transfers within the last month that we have not been able to staff. We had a stroke that was going to Rapid City from the VA, and we had a lady in labor at the hospital. We had to call another ambulance service because we did not have a crew. Another one was they were on a transfer, I believe, again to Rapid, and we had a 911 in town. But I don't know how you change that. I don't know how, without having the staffing, how you can make sure that's covered. As you go through the rest of these, it just sort of says, you know, what we're facing as an ambulance service throughout. To keep the light on EMS in Sturgis and statewide, we're going to need some changes. And I think all of us realize that. We just don't know what to do. And I feel like Sturgis Ambulance, I could not be more proud of the crew I have. We have tried and tried every angle to make our ambulance service sustainable. But when we're out doing fundraising all the time and we're out, you know, having to do these other contracts, it burns people out and they go work elsewhere. And especially when you get $15 an hour. I appreciate everything you guys do. I don't want it like that at all, because you guys have supported us and helped us 110%. But our reimbursement is going down, and I don't know what to do. So as you can see, these are the pieces for our puzzle. And if one piece is not in that puzzle, we don't have an ambulance service. Any questions?
Any questions from council for Sean?
Just a big thank you, Sean. I've been watching this now for 13 years, and I don't know how the hell you do it. I don't know why you do it. I know why you do it, but I don't know how much more you can take.
You're right, Mike. I don't know how much more I can either. I mean, I love this ambulance service, and I have more compassion for this service than anything. But EMS is becoming, and I think it's just because nobody realizes what we do in the field and what the skill level we have to keep up.
Go ahead.
Hey, Sean, you were talking about this being a statewide, probably a national-wide issue. Are there any examples of communities in South Dakota or nearby that have employed strategies or other type of approaches that have made a positive impact?
No. There really isn't.
So really the issue is it's all about wages,
Yep.
you know, keeping, continuity with
Right.
your crews. That's probably the key thing.
Yes, it is. I mean, I've lost 2 medics that went to nursing school because you start at $30-some an hour. You know? And who isn't going to that? I mean, I'm a nurse, but I can tell you that as a paramedic, doing these skills out in the ditch, trying to intubate somebody so you have an airway for them, or on their floor of their living room with their wife standing there, it's a lot different than in the hospital. And I think that that's what people are finally getting to. And it's no offense against any other healthcare provider at all. I have the most respect for every single one of them. But ambulance and fire, you see the worst things out in that field. Those patients don't get brought into the hospital that are laying under something, passed away, that have been smashed by something. I mean, I had to take a good friend of mine that shot himself in the head, you know, when I was living in Faith. That stuff we stabilize it and we take care of a lot of it before it gets to the hospital. And we're very fortunate to have the hospital staff we have here because they work so well with us. But I think it's just the burnout of the continuous things that you see and you deal with. And then you don't get the pay. And we all have bills. We all have to make a living.
Well, and couldn't you also talk about the federal reimbursement rate of Medicare and Medicaid and how that is affecting, your bottom line? And now you just mentioned that the VA is moving to, is it the Medicaid?
To the Medicaid
The
rate.
rate, yes. So that's a federal level. And then I'll be honest, I'm surprised that ambulance service was not included in the Medicaid, the supplemental that was just passed by voters, right? And
No,
is
that
the
was
one,
the
or is that
expansion.
Okay,
This
all right.
supplemental was done about 5 years ago.
Okay, through the legislature.
Yep.
So you were not included in that?
No.
for the last 5 years.
Right. And so now we're trying to get in on that,
Okay.
but it's quite a process we have to write it out how we're going to do it and who's all involved and
Sure. And then you're looking at, unpaid bills from area
yeah.
providers, right? To the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, insurance is expensive. And so when you have insurance, you expect it to pay everything.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you how many calls we get on these lift assists, and they're like, well, send it to my insurance. And we're like, we can't. And they're like, well, I don't have nothing to pay you.
Yeah.
And nothing against them. That's why they pay insurance.
Right. And I know that the topic of Fort Meads, they're the amount that they owe us has been a topic of conversation for us here. That's a substantial amount
Yeah.
that is due our city, the Sturgis ambulance, by, people 3 miles away. So yeah, you add that on to the wages and just everything.
Yeah.
But thank you so much to you and everyone in the ambulance department for what you do.
I
It's so
appreciate that.
appreciated.
And I do appreciate everything you guys do for us more than you know. I mean, I just thought that it was time that people knew like what we're really getting reimbursed. I think a lot of people thought we respond to 2,000 calls. Well, you're getting money for all those, and we're not. And then when you're on a call for a lift assist and you have a heart attack happen or something, you have to call a crew in if there is one and then pay them overtime.
Sean, you said the legislation from 5 years ago did not include ambulance and that you're working on it. Is that the Ambulance Association? That's
Yeah,
kind of
it's the Ambulance Association. I'm the secretary. And I'm one of the only, Robert Rendon and Brent Long on Rapid are good with it. But a lot of the others are private services, so they're not pushing it. So we're happen to do it.
What do you think the probability of having success there at some point in the future?
It's a very high pot. When I talked to Matt and Sarah Aker, she's the Medicaid secretary, they couldn't believe we were left out.
What kind of timeline do you think that might be?
Probably a year. It'll probably go to legislation next year.
Hey, Sean, I had a question on the accounts receivable. $1 million is attributed to commercial. What commercial billing would we have out there hanging?
Commercial is considered Blue Cross, Avera, Sanford, Wellmark. All of those are considered commercial insurance.
Thank you.
Non-federal, basically?
What's that?
Non-federal or?
Private, right?
Non-federal, private?
Right. Yep.
Before you go, will you introduce your two gentlemen at the rear?
I will. This is Bryson Cool. He's a new paramedic, just passed with us. Maxwell Hanna, he's a paramedic. And then Nellie Isaacs is setting. She's one of our builders and an EMTI 99 that's still running calls.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sean. Thank you guys for all you do, for sure. Item 6 is city manager's report by the transition team. We have different lanes for this, and Lisa is up tonight for our staff report, as in the essence of a city manager. So I'll turn it over to you, ma'am.
So basically what I have tonight for you in 6-1 is just adding some new reserve volunteers to the police department. These folks have gone through 6 months of training as well as considerable ride time and qualifications and are getting in the process of being certified. So we are adding them as volunteers for liability and work comp purposes. Additionally, in 6-2, we have some volunteers for the rally and events department. In 6-3, we've got some payroll changes for ambulance. Basically, 1 is a correction and 2 are status changes from full-time. The 6-4 is a lifeguard at the community center, and 6-5 is a front desk attendant. I did have the wrong wage. That is actually a $13 wage on that position. And that's all I have for section 6.
Any questions for Lisa? Thank you. Item 7 is consider consent calendar. 7.1 is that consideration. 7.2 is minutes, and the rest are setting public hearings for the next meeting. Does council wish to remove any of those items and discuss them individually? 7.1 through 7.9. How about anybody in the public? wish to remove any items and discuss them individually within the consent calendar? None being heard, is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a first by Becca.
I'll second.
We have a second by Preston. Any last discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no. Please note unanimous for a roll call vote on the minutes. Item 8 is approval of claims. Questions, comments, concerns on the claims for the first meeting in May? Being the first meeting smaller than the second for the claims amount. Council or public? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a first by Tony. Second by Becca. Any last discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed to no.
Abstain, please.
Well, let's do a roll call then. I'll start over. Preston, we'll start with you.
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Kevin?
Abstain.
I'm a yes. Mike?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
And Becca?
Yes.
All right, we got the bills paid. Sorry about that, Kevin. Should have thought of that before. Item 9 is moving from the city council hat that we wear to the Board of Adjustments for variance, use on review, and other administrative appeals. For tonight's meeting, I'm actually going to turn the gavel over to Mr. Marshall to be the chair of the Board of Adjustments. So I will turn it over to you, Mark, at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This is unusual in that due to absences of some staff members, we have too many roles to play, and were we to do it otherwise, bigger conflicts would arise than having me serve as your hearing officer today. Just as a reminder, in your capacity as members of the Board of Adjustment, you serve in a judge-like capacity, and part of that service requires a disclosure of any conflicts of interest that you may have in sitting on the Board of Adjustment. That is contact concerning the matters before you or financial interests in these. So does anyone have a conflict of interest that they would want to announce? We will move on. The first matter concerns the zoning variance at 1412 Junction Avenue for Jason Thomas of Freak Show Customs Limited. Ms. Kastenstein is going to present the staff report on this matter. Lisa, before you begin, would you please raise your hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Dave Smith is on vacation this evening, and since Mark is your presiding officer, I've been asked and tasked to read you the staff report. I will summarize it. The the zoning variance in front of you for 1412 Junction Avenue is from a Mr. Jason Thomas. He is the owner of Freak Shows Customs Limited. They have submitted an application for a zoning variance for automobile sales. This property is currently in an area zoned for single-family residential and office commercial. That does allow them to operate an auto repair shop. However, or what they do is they restore older vintage and classic vehicles and make them available to for purchase when completed. After restoring the vehicle, it is then made available for sale. In this zoning, they are not able to do the auto sales, and so that is what the variance request is for. They don't anticipate having more than 3 to 5 vehicles available for display or purchase at any given time. The notices were given, letters were sent out to the property owners, and of those that they got back, there was 2 votes denying it for 12.5%, 6 votes approving it for 37.5%, and 8 votes, or 50%, were not returned. The comments from the property owners were permission in the 50s for a gas station was a mistake, concerns with the parking, would love this type of business in this location. It deserves a chance, but please limit parts out back, and please remember the surrounding area is residential. With regards, you were handed out the variance consideration criteria, just for your reference. This would fall under the granting of the variances in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the zoning ordinance and will not be injurious to the neighborhood, detrimental to the public welfare, or in conflict with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission did agree on that, and they made the motion to recommend approval at their April 11th meeting.
Lisa, do you offer the staff report and packet and evidence as well in support of the application?
I do. It was in the packet, and it was prepared by Brittany Regals, our planning coordinator.
Okay, thank you. Members of the council have any questions for Lisa before she gets all the way back and sits down? Recognizing that they may be difficult for her to answer given her limited role this evening. Hearing none, thank you, Lisa. Does anyone else care to speak in favor of the application for a zoning variance?
I made several phone calls personally to people I know in the area, and I find that no one that I talked to within about 100-yard circle had any problem. The question that did come up is, will they have a paint booth? Are they gonna? So if Jason, if you're here, Mr. Thomas, yeah, there you go.
Okay.
The
Mr.
question-
Thomas, before you go any further, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
So the question regarding the paint, be a paint booth installed there.
Okay. That's the only question that I
Okay.
had is how, you know, with a commercial paint booth, you got it all taken care of.
Yep.
So,
And this paint booth isn't something that's going to be run every single day. We're not a production body shop. You know, it takes several months to prepare a vehicle before it gets painted, and then when you do paint it, that vehicle is typically painted one day, all in one shot. And so the paint booth will be used very minimally.
excellent. Thank you for coming this
You
evening.
bet.
Any other questions on behalf of council for Mr. Thomas?
I did have one more personally, mine. How many vehicles will you have parked on the property at maximum any given point in time?
We will have several vehicles that will be in queue to be worked on. I would say maybe 5 or 6. It could get up to 10 if I see a good deal on something. I can't pass it up. You know, I have to take advantage of that. And the majority of the vehicles will be parked in the back. I plan on putting a privacy fence along the back edge of that property. There is fencing on 2 sides, but not the back. And as far as vehicles for sale, as soon as we complete a vehicle, it'll be parked out there on display for sale. There might be a couple of company vehicles, you know, parts trucks and things that we use to run back and forth. But other than that, 4 or 5 for sale, maybe 5 or 6 in the back that are in queue.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Thomas from council? Thank you, sir.
Bet.
Does anyone else care to offer testimony in support of the application? Hearing none, does anyone intend to offer testimony in opposition to the application? Once again, hearing none, Mr. Mayor, I'll close the hearing at this time and allow you to proceed to entertain such motions as you deem appropriate and as the council deems appropriate.
Without any further discussion, is there a motion from council?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the application for Mr. Jason Thomas for the Freak Show Customs LTD.
We have a first by Mike. Is there a second?
A second.
We got a second by Aaron. Any last discussion on the motion? We'll go ahead and roll call it. I'll start with myself. I am yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
And Becca? That variance is granted.
Mr. Mayor, may I point out that this has been a first reading only and that
Correct.
there will be a
Yes.
second.
Appreciate that, and should have mentioned that myself. With the approval of the first reading, we move to item 9.3. This is also within the Board of Adjustments. This is for Alex Ucera. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll call Ms. Kastenstein to the witness stand, if you will. Once again, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give or affirm is the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you?
I do.
Please
Again, I've been asked to, since Mark is in the capacity of your presiding officer, to read into the record the staff report prepared by Brittany Regals, our planning coordinator. This is in regards to a variance to setbacks for Alex Ucera, the property owner for an addition at 316 Main Street. Mr. Ucera has requested a 3-foot variance to the 5-foot side setback and a 16-inch overhang variance to the 10-foot front yard setback for property located at 316 Main Street. The applicant intends to build an addition to the existing building for a garage, as seen in the attached exhibit, which Deb can pull up for you. The reason they need this is for the setbacks to allow them to build that garage. This is a medium-density residential zoning, and that does require the 5-foot setbacks and the 10-foot front yard setback. Staff anticipates no negative impact from the neighboring property owners, with 2 neighboring properties having the same layout for garages. A total of 12 landowner forms went out. None came back denying it, 8 came back approving it, and 8 were not returned. There were no comments from nearby property owners. The Planning Commission did make a motion to recommend this for approval at its April 11th, 2023 meeting.
Members of the council have any questions for Lisa? Hearing none, do you offer the packet in evidence as well?
I do, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is anyone else present today to testify in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone present to testify in opposition to this application? Once again, hearing none, that will close the evidence. Mr. Mayor, I'll return the matter to your consideration.
With the proceedings complete there, does anybody have a motion for 9.4?
A motion to
Nine-
approve.
9.3, sorry, Preston.
That's all right. I can, a motion to approve, consideration for variance setback for Alex Ucera.
We have a first,
Second.
we have a second by Angela. Any last discussion on the motion? We'll go ahead and roll call this again. I'll start with myself again. Again, I am yes. Kevin?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Becca? Yes. Tony?
Yes.
Angela?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
That variance is granted. Brings us to 9.4, which we will currently adjourn the Board of Adjustments and resume the council meeting. Item 10 is, do we need a motion on that, Mark? I think we do, don't we? No.
Yes, I
We-
believe you would.
We didn't do it on the first part, so we don't need it on the second part, right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor.
Item 10 is public hearings under old business. 10.1 is an SEL for the RASDAC right across South Dakota. And I have Faye down for the staff report, please.
Good evening again. Yes, Loud American has given a application for a special events license to serve at the RASDAC right across South Dakota event. All paperwork was there, everything, money was given, and everything is good. So I would recommend to approve.
Any questions from council on the special event license? How about public comments, questions, concerns in favor or against the granting of this SEL? None being heard, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to approve the SEL for the right across South Dakota.
First by Kevin.
I'll second it.
We got a second by Tony. Any last discussion, public or council? None being heard. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed and no. That motion carries. Brings us to old business reports. Item 11.1. This is consideration to approve the 2022 annual report. And Faye, right back to you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So lots of numbers. We do this. It's not that I'm asking you to say that every one of these numbers are perfect and know that. What I'm asking you for is that I am presenting to you the annual report for 2022, which includes my balance sheets for both the governmental and then for our enterprise funds. So basically, your balance sheet is showing your cash, your assets, your accounts receivables, your liabilities. And then you turn around, and then I have two reports that show you your revenues and expenses. Those two then will tie back to your balance sheet, which that is how I prove myself that I've got the numbers in there pretty good. So once I can balance that, the first sheet, it's the annual report. There is one that goes to the newspaper, which is that first one right there. And so that one will go to the newspaper after you guys have approved it. Not a whole lot changed. I mean, the cash balances did go down, but basically, like I've been telling you, most of 2022, that's because of the purchase of the Richards property. And so it is a little bit different there. The enterprise funds, most are doing, well. We also, it does show on the one that goes to the newspaper, it does show where the money is, the depositories. And that is on the third page of that one. It also shows the long-term debt. So lots of numbers in here. If you guys ever have any questions about them or where they are, I would be more than happy to visit with you guys on them. Of course, the auditors are here this week, so they are looking at these same numbers and making sure that everything is correct. So it's that time of the year. Do you have any questions?
How about anybody in the public questions on the annual report for 2022?
And this will be on the website. And then it is also given to Peer, and it is also put on the Department of Legislative Audit. It is actually put on their website also. And you can go back and look at several years on the DLA website.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion for consideration of the 2022 annual report?
I second.
We got a first by Becca and a second by Mike. Any last discussion, council or public? None being heard. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Item 11.2 is the city's authority to address the citizens' concerns regarding the school bus pickup and drop-off points along 14A. I think it's fair to state that it's with the information that I've gleaned through the report and through discussions with the agency tasked to accomplish the end result, and I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, a group of citizens provided a letter and spoke with some city staff regarding concerns regarding a school bus stop along, kind of heading west out of town along Lozelle Street. I reviewed, trying to see what sort of authority the city has to act on that, and my conclusion is it's very limited, just because generally the school district, rather than the city, is in charge of maintaining their school buses and organizing bus routes. So, I mean, one aspect is the city really shouldn't step on the school district's toes on their operating. So my recommendation is to work with the school district to resolve this issue. Additionally, right where that school bus is part of the state trunk highway as identified by the legislature. And with that, the city authority to provide markings or any sort of stoplights and things of that sort is extremely limited. Primarily rests on the South Dakota Department of Transportation, DOT, to manage that stretch. So the staff recommendation is to work closely with DOT and see if we can work out an alternative and provide additional markings. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council for Eric at this point? Aaron's reaching. Go ahead.
Eric, you said that, what we can do is limited. Does that mean that really all we can do is work with other agencies to make recommendations based on, what we see and what we're asking for? Or when you say there's limited, that means it seems like there's an avenue, even though it's pretty small. And what is that avenue that we could do as a city?
It's primarily working,
Okay.
advocating on behalf of the citizens to those organizations and working closely with those organizations on trying to partner to create any alternatives. But the primary decision makers are the school district and the state regarding that area. But I would recommend to the city we're sympathetic to the citizens, the city staff is, and this city has in the past shown that, safety is always a priority within the city, and city staff is more than willing to work with whomever to resolve these problems, but the actions specifically is very limited. And
Any further discussion from council? Go ahead, Mike.
I don't have any discussion, but I feel for the parents that are affected. I really do. I lived that for the better part of my life before we moved to town, getting kids on and off Highway 34 with vehicles mile an hour. So I understand your hesitation. I, for one, will be going to the school when the school board has the hearing on this. As a private citizen for the city of Sturgis, I don't know how much power I have, but I sure intend to voice my opinion. DOT has to do something. That's just my opinion.
Do we know, does the school or the state aware of the issue?
Well, Wayne is here, our superintendent, so he is present tonight. I believe there's been communications, certainly. I don't want to overstep any bounds, but I believe staff has even spoke with DOT somewhat on working for some solutions on some markings and signage and things like that. So there has been progress, albeit there's many agencies involved, but trying to figure out what's best for the safety, like Eric said. So at this point, I'd like to invite anybody up. Thanks, Eric. That'd like to make comments. If you'd come on up and state your name, we appreciate you joining us.
Good evening, guys. Mr. Mayor, City Council members, citizens. My name is Angel Pisani, and this is Catherine Van Dorn. She is the organizer of this cause. I'm just kind of here to help, so for right now, I'm going to defer to her, and then I will have a couple questions for you following up afterwards. Good evening. My name is Catherine Van Dorn. Due to my psychological illness, I will ask that all questions wait until I am finished. I do have notes here to help me with my speech to you guys tonight. Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Catherine Van Dorn, and I'm a local business owner and a single mom of 2 children. I am here because children as young as 5 are in danger. On March 10th, my son's life was put in jeopardy when he was almost hit by a Kenworth semi-truck crossing Highway 14A. I have not been able to sleep at night since, as I keep picturing my son being flattened on that highway due to the negligence of Harlow's Bus Barn. According to the AAA website, The mortality rate of a vehicle versus pedestrian accident at 45 miles per hour is 90%. Yet children are being forced by Harlow's Bus Barn to cross 2 to 4 lane highways. In Meade County, highways rank number 3 for accidents. The second leading cause is speeding. The highest crash rates are between 6 to 8 a.m. and 3 to 7 p.m. The same time frames our children are loading and unloading from the buses. This information can be found on the Meade County webpage. I'm here because our children are in danger. On April 25th, I met with Superintendent and Harlow's Bus Barn to discuss safer bus drop-offs. Our bus route was changed, however, just days later, a student was made to cross from the rear of their bus on Highway 34 out by 9 Mile Road. The grandmother personally reached out to me on this matter. This is a company-wide issue, not just on Highway 14A. And this is just in more than one location in our city. On Highway 14A, we can barely negotiate turning into the mobile home park in a vehicle, let alone walk the highway, due to the lack of safety infrastructure. We come to you because we are asking for help in making this road and all bus stops in our area safer for our families and get our children out of danger. Here are 5 solutions that are backed by 183 residents of Sturgis, South Dakota. Number 1, that Harlow's contract state that they will follow and abide by all state and federal laws, including the stopping of the procedure of making our children cross any highways. They should be dropped off on the proper side of the road, period. Number 2, bus stop ahead signs be installed on Highway 14A so that motorists are aware that we have unloading zones and loading zones for children. Number 3, that crosswalks, stoplights, or turning lanes be considered for this section of the highway so that we can be safe. Number 4, we're asking for a reduced speed limit so there's less chance of accidents on this section of road. And our 5th request is for help to amend the section law 32-32-6 to stop all lanes of traffic for our children. Again, these are just suggestions as solutions to help make this area safer for our kids and for our neighbors. It's not a matter of if somebody's going to get hurt. It's a matter of when. And my son had too close of a call for comfort. Above being a working member of this community, I am a mother. And I do not want to see anybody's child get hurt. Thank you for your time and consideration. I will now defer back to my communications manager.
Okay, so a couple questions I have for you guys is, why is Harlow's being allowed to commit child care and safety negligence? We don't understand. They gave us a sheet of paper twice now stating that they were going to start not having children cross the 4-lane highway at all, that's a federally mandated law. And this was effective as of like April 20th, I believe, was the first notice. On April 27th, they completely amended how they're doing pickup and drop off. And now they've given this AM and PM route for everyone. But they were still having children cross from Oak Acres to the other trailer court. I don't remember what it's called. But we're just wondering why they're being allowed to do that. For my second question, what are we supposed to do when the school board isn't really contacting us, the police aren't helping us? We're being told to defer to DOT and to defer to you guys. We would really like some help here with this. Also, we're supposed to ask you this. Who is supposed to be responsible for having Harlow's continue to not adhere to federal laws as well as state laws and continuing to let these kids be in danger? And how can you help our agenda forward?
Those are some pretty hard questions.
Yeah.
I think by continuing the communication and continued working with all the entities, facilitating the communication between those entities and working with a solution in mind for safety being the utmost, along with just the operations as a whole. I believe that a community like ours is willing to work together and figure out how to make things better. I can't specifically state what the time frame which would be reasonable. Obviously, yesterday is too late. I mean, that's the bottom line, but the machine moves slow and there's multiple cogs to it. So I, again, don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I think it's fair that the city would work with DOT as much as possible with the signage. I think the school board and Wayne would be certainly willing to work with trying to come up with solutions. I just think the first real step is the public of this is a situation where we have to address it. So
Yeah, we went door to door to every house in our neighborhood in all 3 of those trailer courts, and every single person I spoke to and every single person she spoke to agreed that that highway is not safe, even for pedestrians crossing, especially for children. And something needs to be done about this. It's kind of ridiculous that we're being told to go to one person to the next to the next. Somebody needs to take responsibility here before you end up in a litigation or, you know, have a fatality.
Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
Well, thank you for being here this evening. I was first made aware of this just a few days ago, that this was an issue out there. I guess my first remarks would be in regard to the signage, the crosswalks with the lights, and the reduced speed limit. As you know, and I want to make sure that the public's aware, Highway 14A is a state highway. It is not considered a city street, unfortunately, and so that limits our power to be able to do anything. Again, unfortunately. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that 14A is classified as a state highway. But I think what we could do as a city is certainly be the advocates to DOT, whether it's, you know, phone calls or personally, you know, us signing a letter to DOT stating that this is an important issue that we feel, I think, time is of the essence, needs to be addressed. Of course, this year we're getting close to the end of the school year, but I think, you know, when they start looking at the next school year, you know, it would give DOT the summer to be able to look at the possibility, because I think signage would be, in my opinion, something that would be an easy fix. You know, I think I'd like to see, depending on where they could put the bus stops, you know, the flashing signs kind of help. Those would make aware that there's a bus stop right there. So I guess I would like to see us as a council perhaps sign some kind of letter in support to DOT. And then the second thing, Angel, if you could just maybe clarify, I guess I'm not quite sure when you talk about adhering to federal laws for Harlow's, what exactly does that?
So they gave us a notice that said that effective immediately, it is federally mandated that students are not allowed to cross the 4-lane highway. And they said that on the 20th, and then they said it again on the 7th. But this whole time, in that time frame, they're still letting students having been crossing that road. And it's mostly over by Oak Acres, and it's also apparently up the road, heading up the canyon as well. They're having kids cross the road, you know. So I don't know.
They've refused to release what the federal mandate specifically states.
Yeah.
We just have codified law 32-32-6, which states only 2 of those 4 lanes of highway are required to stop for our children.
Okay. So Harlow's won't tell you specifically what that means as far as federal mandate. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? This is a really sad story that keeps repeating itself in our state. I just quickly pulled up the stats. In 10 years in South Dakota, the number of pedestrian fatalities has doubled. While we can't necessarily immediately address, you know, a lot of your concerns and whatnot, we can maybe quickly talk about some of the things that we are working on as a city. One of those is a bike path out to that area of you know, your residents. The other thing I think that you could really be involved in, and if I'm not mistaken, isn't the LaSalle Street Corridor Study next public meeting yet this month of May, and that is Highway 34 throughout our entire community, and you know, redesigning, realigning addressing pedestrian safety, public safety all the way through. So those are good pieces to try and make sure that you attend and make sure your voice is heard.
And when would that be, sir?
Is that the junction corridor study? That's not, that's the junction.
Lozelle is over? Okay, so are we going to be releasing that study here?
The states, it's the states.
I mean, it might help answer some questions with the, I apologize for that. I thought there was one more meeting on that yet.
That's okay.
You're welcome to visit with me after council, or everybody's got my phone number, so give me a shout and I'll meet with you at McDonald's or something. But starting in about 1962, our bus stop had to be, we were forced to make a new bus stop on Highway 34 at 9 Mile Road. We own the adjacent property, so we made a pull-off that we could park 6 cars there. And the neighbor was very, the property owner where we did this was very admirable. But we had to take and force our community not to allow our kids to cross, because no matter what, you get out on the right, anybody on the other side of the road, the kids have to pass either in front or behind that bus. Either way, they're in a blind spot. Anyway, we did have the opportunity to save at least one of my daughters at that intersection. I feel for you that it's going to take a lot of resources to make this happen. I would suggest that if it was my family, I'd be getting the kids picked up there at the shopping mall in front of Pizza Hut or Pizza Ranch. The kids are going to have to get dropped off somewhere else, so they exit to the right, to the north, and you pick them up in a parking lot. That's the only thing that you can do at this point in time.
Thank you guys for your consideration today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else to add on that subject at this point? Come on up, Wayne.
Hello, Wayne Wormstead, Superintendent of Meade School District. We had a positive meeting with Harlow's and our concerned parents on what's taking place there. We adjusted some routes because where our route drop-offs were would actually encourage a student, if they want to get home early, they'd actually cross the street because they wouldn't have to drive up the whole canyon. That's just one small step with this. We evaluated that, I drove it too, and looking at where we need some pull-offs and some space for the bus to actually clear the full 2 lanes of traffic at that time. And by spacing the routes up, hopefully we can discourage some children when they get off that they won't cross it. There are some limited things for that, is when a child gets off the bus, what they do is tough for the bus company. I will say that who's responsible with Harlow's for those children is the school district, because we contract with Harlow's. So when concerns and complaints come in and hear about them later, I'd rather hear about them earlier, so we can address those. So it's not shifting the buck or anything like that. It comes back to the school. Being a past bus driver in earlier parts of my career, there are some federal laws that say what you can and can't do when traffic should stop and not stop. The 4-lane highway is one of the most dangerous stops you can actually have, and it's supposed to be a pull-off right, but the other 2 oncoming lanes do not have to stop on crossing on that. So it does cause a concern, especially when you look at where we have residential on both sides of the street there, and understanding that kids sometimes don't do well with that, but at the same time, how we educate and inform our parents is our responsibility as a school district and a bus company to make sure that we limit the exposure for accidents and those choices that take place with that. We're here to be partners in anything that takes place with the community, of course, here or anywhere else. And this is something that, as I'm new to this area and learning about some things that we may need to change with that, which is more than willing to do. I'm open for any questions whatsoever about busing, transportation of 2,300 miles of bus routes. I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
So on 14A, do they just pull off to the right?
Yep, only way they can legally do is pull off to the right side.
They can't
Tech-
pull into the actual,
The K-turn actually causes more turns where you pull into a place where you don't have a full turnaround at. That's when kids get off the bus, it makes it more dangerous for kids on that situation. The issue is there's also a blind turn if you drive that coming around down Boulder Canyon on that very first approach stop that we have there. There's very little space for the oncoming traffic to do anything. So you can't do a road blockage like you do on a two-way highway with no shoulder with that, because that actually creates more of a chance for an accident taking place at that time, because coming around that corner of 35, accelerating to 45 is going to lead to a possibly collision with the bus. So you're trying to find that. There is some space there in that approach to do it. Is it probably wide enough and long enough for a 71 passenger, 77 passenger bus? I mean, they're big. It takes space, so.
you know, for a rural state, you know, like us out here in this part of the country, and then having a two-lane highway on both sides of it, is 45, is that typical or higher along that? Or do they typically have the speeds a lower amount based on residentials living down there with the bus, with kids being present and the buses being dropped off?
Depends on the location. You're in a unique situation here where we have a four-lane highway that turns to 45 that it has residential on both sides of the street. I think that's in city limits. So we have city limits, bus company, school district, state highway on that. Could it be slower there? Definitely. I'm more concerned about the traffic actually coming down around the corner from Boulder Canyon when you look at that for your sight lines. And then also for bus driver, if I'm pulling out, even if I am on that shoulder there, the sight line's not very good when you're looking for a vehicle coming around the corner. So it is probably already considered a dangerous area for that. The best solution we'd have is a complete pull off, which had a turnaround so the bus could actually pull out on a T, so it could make a pull in, make a loop, drop off, don't have to worry about any K-turn backups, and then pull to the right onto traffic so they could see traffic both ways and monitor kids. There's just not space there for that, for that situation. So we did space the routes, the drop-offs out to really discourage from either side of the road. It's actually a shorter walk home if you ride the bus than before, just coming across the road where the stops were before. So it's a step in the right direction, but their signage would be beneficial. Speed control may be beneficial. Not just here, there's probably other locations too that we'll find out from this. Parents making us aware of some of this. That's the best answer I can give on those pieces from driving bus before. I know Harlow's is here also, that they can give more information and technicality in those pieces there, but just from my experience running buses by district and also contracting privately and driving them myself, so.
If I could ask a couple of questions, sir. I don't know how we fix this, but I can't believe that the kids have to cross a 4-lane. That just doesn't make any sense.
They're not required to.
I understand. But if they ride around, how far up the canyon do they go before the bus turns around?
I am not sure of the exact time or distance on that specifically. That'd be a question for Harlow's, could answer that question. But we do not require kids, and they're not supposed to cross the road. And our stops probably were too close together to encourage that possibly for that. So we spread those out. We've gone down to 3 stops on that. So I think that'll be beneficial, but I was 12 at one time. I'll be honest, when I was 12, I didn't make the best decisions. And that doesn't make an excuse for this. It doesn't dismiss safety and decisions we should be making. So we have to inform and ask for parent support, and also we have to do a better job as a school district and a bus company situation, plus communicate it really well, what the expectations are, so the kids can actually follow those expectations and parents understand them. But we do not require kids to cross the 4-lane highway to get home. It's a right-hand drop-off by law. You can't have that.
With some of the recommended mitigations, have you had any contact with the Department of Transportation, the state?
I basically became really informed of this last week.
Okay.
Scheduled a meeting last week with the concerned parents and Harlow's to come into the board training room, and we pulled up the map and really started looking at what our space and distances were. Harlow's drove the route to see if there's any solutions that day with the regional manager. Also, I drove the route that day to make sure I understood everything that's taking place and seen for space and distance, what's possible there. There's not a lot of one side of the road there's alternatives, but I don't know if that's a private drive or a city street. Point on the right side, I can't remember the name of when you're going up the canyon on the right side, the residential right there, pull through that actually makes a very safe stop off. I don't know if that's a residential or private. If it's private, a lot of people don't like to have a large bus driving through there in the fall and spring. So that's our best solution. That's what we went with right away. I'm not sure how the communication with Harlow's currently. I haven't got an update on Monday yet of whether that's gone well with the owner of that facility.
Well, I know the city doesn't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, but for my intensive purposes, I would make my kids ride around so they get off on the right side of the bus. Kids that go to the north trailer court get off when they come, but the other kids ride around, or the parents pick them up somewhere.
That has been our messaging. It probably wasn't as clear as it could have been earlier. Probably out of past tradition, and things are just the same. They just continue to work, and when you're made aware of a situation, that's when you put a lot of effort into making that change and communicating that better. So we're at that stage right now, to be honest.
So it's come up a couple times from a couple counselors about DLT and where they at on this. I reached out to them last week, just so you're aware, letting them know. They took a aerial footage of Google Maps and looked at it and thinks that it's probably warranted for at least some bus stoppage ahead signage. So they've been open to look at it. They have not been here for a site visit yet, but they're supposed to be scheduling one to come up and take a look at it. But they have been open to something. They're just not sure what yet. So reach out to them, let them know this is a concern from parents, this is school concern from all the above, everybody that's got a hand in it, and they have been willing to come take a look and potentially put up some additional signage. So I will be following up with them probably this week too to see when they're going to come up for that visit.
Thanks, Chief.
You know, I know that Rick and his team sometimes meet with Department of Transportation too, with other stuff going on. So maybe once that meeting's coming up, maybe Rick, we could have another conversation and just kind of hammer that down a little bit more.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Wayne. Any other input? Looks like Harlow's is coming forward, so.
My name is Matt Dickerson. I'm the Regional Operation Manager for Harlow's. I just wanted to really reiterate what Mr. Wormstad said. We do want to work with any of the parents in Meade County, obviously Sturgis included, making sure that we are able to transport their students safely every day. With this situation, we have looked at that northern neighborhood and made sure that we had a right-hand drop-off for all of those students. It is about 20 miles. It is, sorry, I am not from this area, so I've got to get some cheaters. Apple Springs neighborhood is where that bus route turns around. It is approximately 20 minutes or so from where that first stop is on the north side outbound until they get back to those two neighborhoods on the southern side of the road. We are doing right-hand drop-offs. We've got two, one for Mountain View, one for Oak Acres on the south side of 14A coming back in to make sure that we don't have any students that are required to cross the highway there. We have reached out and have been asking parents for some assistance. There are some students that would prefer either not to ride the bus for quite as long or want to stay with their friends for a little while longer and ride the bus and cross. We've been asking for some assistance to make sure that those students are getting off where they're supposed to be getting off so that they're not crossing that highway. And then I am open to any questions if any on the council.
Come on up to the microphone, please. We do have a question behind you. Does council have any questions for Matt at this point?
Catherine Van Dorn again. I do have one question for Harlow's in regards to the children's behavior on the bus.
We parents have been met with a lot of backlash from the students, include foul name calling from the bus, and they have gone so far now as to create fake social medias to stalk and harass us. We're curious what the bus barn's response to that is going to be. I was supposed to receive a call back, but I did not.
Okay, I will look into seeing if we can get that call back to you, get you that information. Behavior on the bus is dictated. Usually the school board sets out their expectations for their students. We follow that as well, and there is disciplinary action, whether that be a verbal discussion with those students, write-ups, something along those lines. As far as the social media, that we wouldn't have much play. It would be some of the verbal comments and stuff like that we're able to actually see on the bus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any,
So the first one, I believe it is at Alton Street up on the north side. So we will actually pull off the highway there and drop off so that we are not in traffic. Correct. And then I believe it's the furthest east. It does not look like it connects, or sorry, furthest west. We'll get back up onto 14A, finish that route up into Apple Springs, and then coming back on the south side, it's go just a little bit, the next approach on to the west. So just to the west of where your cursor is right now. Other direction. Out of town.
so Apollo Place.
So after the turn, so there is just to the west of here, outside of town, there is a fairly large hill that blocks visibility. My understanding is that in years past, that's where that stop was on Aurora Place. That has been moved to Apollo Place, right up at the top of where that upside down Y is. That is one of those stops, and then there's another one just a little bit further to the east. I believe it's just off the screen, or where Acadia Place comes in is where that other stop is. And that allows, again, the students that are in Mountain View and Oak Acres to not have to walk down the highway for any length of time to get into their residences. And then, again, kind of separates where those stops are from the north and south side of the highway to discourage students from wanting to cross the highway right there.
Any further questions, comments, concerns from anybody at this point? I don't believe any action is anticipated from the council for our authority to do anything other than facilitating more conversations, and appreciate everybody's time and energy to come up with a solution here. So,
All right, I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
thanks, Matt. Last chance for any last comments on this matter. Appreciate everybody's time. Brings us to 11.3. This is to consideration to accept low bid on a weather system at the airport, and Lisa's coming back up. So over to you, Lisa, please.
Again, Mr. Smith is out of town today on vacation, so I was asked to read this report for you. Basically, council tonight is being asked to accept a low bid for a Super AWAS 3 project at the municipal airport and authorize Mark Marshall to sign all the necessary documents as the member of the transition team. A Super AWAS is an automated weather observation system. It operates at its own frequency and broadcasts immediate and current weather information and conditions at the airport. We currently have one that broadcasts a recording. It's updated a certain number of times per day, and it's not as accurate as the Super AWAS will be. Our system is also 29 years old, and it's a little bit dated. So with this new system, we would be able to attract other other vendors, other shippers to come into our area just because it does have that accurate information. This is a project that is being done with our airport improvement program funds, as well as some bipartisan infrastructure law funds. The total project cost is going to be about $415,000. After federal grants, our local cost share will be $20,750, and that is a budgeted expense in our capital improvements fund. The low bid was submitted by PIE of Whitewood, and that was coming in at $252,316, and the budgetary impact is that local cost share, and we do believe that that would be able to be picked up through the fuel sale profits that we incur at the airport or collect at the airport.
Any questions for Lisa from council? How about public input on this project at our airport?
And we did have 3 bids.
Yep. And all relatively close considering. Is there a motion on this consideration to, if so, if it's to approve, to authorize Mr. Marshall to sign all necessary documents?
So moved.
Second.
We have first by Preston and a second by Kevin. Any last discussion? Council or public? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
Yes.
Opposed, a no. That motion carries. Thanks, Lisa. Item 11.4 is consideration for a revised development agreement with the Klima property. I have Mr. Marshall down for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I believe it was in December that, as a matter of courtesy, I'll wait for the mayor to return.
He indicated that you could proceed.
Then, as a matter of courtesy to the council, I will. This project had been approved earlier this year and contemplated septic systems for the 3 mobile homes, a septic system for the Klima property. Since that time, the Klimas have asked to subdivide that to add an additional lot. The amended or revised development agreement addresses that concern and allows the Klimas, or rather requires the Klimas, to connect to the city sewer system if and when it becomes near their development. Right now it is at 400 feet and no further extension is contemplated in the immediate or extended future. I am somewhat at a loss to provide additional details, but I would be happy to find answers to questions if members of the council have any.
Looks like Mr. Miller is going to do a...
I can help answer any questions for Mr. Marshall if additional questions arise. I was the one that drafted the initial development agreement and the revised agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, I do have a question just about the number of lots. So they're looking to do an additional one, so 3 lots that are buildable, but then the agreement mentions 4. And it seemed to me that the 4th, is that the dedicated right-of-way, that 4th?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure that that's...
Yeah, when it's referencing the 4 lots, it's the 3 subdivided lots plus the dedicated roadway.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff from council?
Mr. Klima, I don't know whether you've talked to Rick Bush about this or not, but wouldn't it be cheaper for you all the way around to dig the 400 feet?
Well, if I did do that, then
You better come up to the microphone.
Well, originally he told me, or I was told that it would cost like $100,000 to dig up through the road there, because you have to do, you know, you have to dig through the
rock.
concrete and have it repaved and all that stuff. And there's already a septic on the bottom lot, so we just have to put a septic on the middle lot. And then the top lot, there's no plans for doing anything there. I just wanted to have it in case in the future we wanted to do something there.
Well, that all makes sense. I just, you know, just sitting back, looking at it, 400 feet for me wouldn't be an issue out there.
Yeah, going through the road might be a little bit more
But,
paved road
And then
in town.
Not knowing the topography personally.
If I could do it myself, it'd be a lot cheaper too, but I don't know if I could do that in town.
Dan.
In Newell and Nisland I could, but not Sturgis.
And I think that as the agreement states in discussions with Rick is the fact that when there is sewer in that direction, they'll be stubbed out and ready
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
And then it states in there, if there's ever a considerable problem with my sewer, then I would have to hook onto it. I won't have to hook onto it until my sewer goes bad.
That is true. In the agreement, that way he's not, he can maintain a septic system up until essentially kind of like a non-conforming use, where it maintains and you don't have to go through the expenses of pulling up a fully functional and good septic system.
That way, if in a year he decided to put septic up through there, I didn't waste my money on the septic if you put sewer up there.
Right.
And the agreement also contemplates where if there isn't a nearby source or hook up to city utilities and the septic system needs repair or replacement, that he can continue to replace and repair it and then essentially run through the same process. So it's trying to balance needs within both the property owner and the city.
Well, and originally when we talked, that was one of the main things is, hey, you're going to have a cost to put in the septic and then we have you force the sewer in. So I think this is a fair.
Yeah, and then I think it's like 0.52 acres that I'm giving up for the right of way. So that's a pretty good chunk of land.
Agreed. Any other discussion in this consideration of this matter? Mr. Kleem, have anything to add, or do you, at this point, no?
Nope.
How about council? Questions, comments, concerns, in addition to already mentioned ones? Anybody in the public have any questions, comments, concerns? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the revised development agreement for the Klima property.
A second.
I have a first by Becca and a second by Mike. Any last discussion? None being heard. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Item 11.5 is consideration to approve an addendum for the professional medical service agreement. And Sean is invited back up because you wanted to talk more tonight. Turn it over to you, ma'am.
This addendum, Jody and I were approached by the sheriff and Caleb. We had sent them bills for transports for inmates from the jail to the hospital. And so they asked if we could maybe set a blanket amount for that. And they took the amount of transports we had in 2022. And that is the 18,000 that they came up with. When it went to county commissioners, they went down to 13,000.
So this is a consideration to amend for an addendum in addition to the existing contract,
That is correct.
which is brought forward by discussions of EMS staff between the county and the city. Does council have any questions for Sean? about,
It makes it pretty thin for you, doesn't it? From 13 to, I mean, $8,000 is a lot of loss.
and I think the discussions have been had from both sides of the expense, what it would take to fully staff what we're accomplishing. It would be 10, 20-fold times that number, and budgetary constraints and things like that that entities have to deal with is why we have what we have. If that's a fair statement.
Yes.
May I, Mr. Mayor?
Please.
Sean, is it true that that $13,000 number that the county arrived at just was the amount that they had budgeted?
I believe so. They budgeted 100,000. That's what our contract had been previously. And then it was negotiated at 87,000. And so they had 13,000 in the budget. So that's where they came up with that amount. I can tell you that the transports and the responses to the jail this year have been up. So it's probably gonna be larger than it was in 2022.
And that's how you got that number.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Any county, when they pay for ambulance transports, they pay Medicaid rates. And so Caleb took all the transports we had in 2022 and figured out the Medicaid rate for them. And that's how he came up with that amount, was 18,000. To be exact, it was like 17,964 or something, and he just rounded it to 18,000.
And we've already been educated on Medicaid rates.
Right.
So what would you do if the council elected not to agree to that agreement? You go back to the county and ask for the 18?
I don't know. I'm very torn on this. I mean, we'll be very blunt about it. It has gotten to be more and more that we are being asked to do up there.
I listen to the calls. I mean, you're at the jail 3 times a night. Sometimes, most of the time.
Yep. It's funding we need, though, for our ambulance service. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we can, I feel like we just have to go with it this year, and then, I don't know. I will do whatever you guys as a council says.
When does your year end? Is it a fiscal
December.
year?
Yep, December, right, Jody? I was not on when they did the last contract, when they negotiated it, so I'm not sure.
Just a little backstory. So as you know, the sheriff department to the Ron Merwin stepped down. Pat West took over. Daniel Ainsley left, and then unfortunately, there's new fingers involved, whether that's Pat West and myself, and then also trying to bring Sean in the loop. So we were trying to find, it would have been originally proposed to get through, and the mayor might be able to help me on this too, but they tried to get the county to sign, or when I say the county, the sheriff's department to sign a contract to extend that a little bit to give us some breathing room for Pat West to come in and get understanding of the rules and stuff. And for whatever reason, there wasn't a contract signed. So when Daniel left, that was one of my tasks that I visited with Pat West, and we came up with the best feasible plan to get a contract going. And we went with what was originally planned when I say originally, it was talked between the county and the city with 87,000. Like Sean mentioned, there was a discrepancy with some billing. And so they approached us and tried to ask for a Plan B. And that's where we came up with our $18,000 to get us through until after the rally and then start negotiating. Our goal is that the 4 of us are going to sit down and start negotiations for 2024 contract, which will end December 31st. And hopefully if we start in September, we can have a viable plan, because everybody that's sitting at the table understands that there's some major cost issues, and we will have to have a substantial increase. So this will allow, hopefully, the sheriff's department and the city to plan accordingly for it. And our goal is to be working together as a team. And like I said, unfortunately, there's some new players at the table, so we're all trying to learn, including myself. So that's kind of where we ended up with this.
And historically speaking, Chief, as we go back and why we originally talked about and contracted between the county and the city together was the simple fact that the county was employing a full-time nurse to do the things that the ambulance is now doing, which in addition to those duties, the ambulance will still be required to transport. So I think the interest of the taxpayers and being good stewards of taxpayers' money is coming from all sides, but it's just a continued situation of dealing with raised cost, short staff, and a lot of needs up there. So
I agree, and I think going forward, we'll hopefully be able to sufficiently budget so that both sides, it's a win-win for everybody. I know if Sean's sitting here, as you've seen tonight, we're struggling financially. She's looking for ways to bring income in, so, you know, it's a bittersweet thing where sometimes it's too much work, but also what else do we do? And that's where we've talked about maybe some other options down the road with not talking about contracts, but on how to organize our emergency response group and team, and hopefully get some funds for them.
is your recommendation similar to Sean saying something that we probably should just do now and work out better down the road?
I think so. It might cause us a little bit of a hiccup, and unfortunately, it's probably going to cause Sean more of a hiccup than anybody. But it's something that's, we've also visited with the sheriff that we're going to sit down and start holding some monthly meetings, and hopefully we can get some expectations set for his staff, and Sean will kind of train them on what she expects and what she needs them to be calling her for and when not to, and hopefully we can triage, for lack of better terms, some of that process to take a little pressure off of Sean, hopefully, and put a little more pressure onto the correction officer staff. And I've even visited with the Sheriff West today about it as well, so it's something going forward we're going to try to meet on. And I think with communication, we can be transparent, we can be successful at it, and I think, unfortunately, with these contracts, sometimes there's these gray areas that we don't know, and it wasn't, so it was one of the things that I jumped on, started running, and didn't see some of the underlying wording that we weren't covering ourselves as well as the county sufficiently.
Well, that's the difference of the definition of one word, but we'll work on that as we go.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
So I noticed in the report, it states that this is just for transporting inmates from Meade County?
Yes.
And that other counties are billed for that transportation. Going forward, do you see an agreement being made with other counties, or, I mean, is that an issue at all?
No,
Or,
the
okay,
other counties are very good about paying, but
Okay.
once again, they only pay Medicaid rates.
okay, all right.
Yeah, they're very, and that was supposed to be what was started to happen, that we were supposed to start billing Meade County this year, and that's what we did, is we sent them the bills for all the transports, and they got them, and
That's why we're here.
yep, that's why we're here, because they were a little taken back by all the transports they had already this year, which is 4 months.
Do we, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, so I'm not gonna ask that question. But I personally don't believe that we need this contract to make us float.
I wish you were right, Mike. I wish I could figure out another 80,000, because you can ask, I called Eric when I heard about this and said, how can we get out of the contract? I, for one, am tired of being called all night. But I will not let my ambulance crew not have the pay they deserve and the equipment they deserve and everything. I will continue to do whatever I have to bring that money in. And I don't know how else you can bring that kind of money in. I just don't.
And I think we have a duty to provide quality care to prisoners in Meade County as well, you know, so the sheriff's department needs our services as well, and they're aware of that. Unfortunately, there's just a few gray areas that as we trudge down this road, we're finding some little speed bumps that we got to clarify and hopefully make it better. But
Well, I'll be the outlaw. I can't sing Kumbaya and watch this continue. So, I mean,
And I am the one that brought this contract way back when it started. I'm the one that saw the job and advertised. I went to Daniel because we were responding to the jail. I went to Daniel and said, hey, can we do this? Can we propose it to Ron? We're going there anyways. This way we'll know the inmates. We'll know what they're trying to pull on us. And so it just has blown up a lot more than I expected.
Anything else from council or the public?
excuse me.
Is anybody willing to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to approve the addendum to the current professional medical services agreement with the Meade County Sheriff's Office.
We have a first by Becca.
I'll second.
We have a second by Aaron. Any last discussion?
We're
None?
spending money by losing it, so roll call it.
Was that for the minutes? For the record? Any last discussion? None being heard. We'll go ahead and roll call. Mike, we'll start with you.
No.
Angela,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Becca,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and I'm yes. That,
You come see me and I'll supplement you.
that motion carries. Brings us to item 12. This is Sine Die. This is where the 2022-2023 council adjourns and our 2023-2024 council session begins. I call to order this 2023-24 council session and item 13.1. First item for action from the new business is 13.2, election of council presidents. I'd open the floor for election of the council president.
Mr. Mayor, I nominate Miss Becca Zerps for president of the council.
We have a first by Mike nominating Becca Zerps. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. I open the floor to any other nominations for council president. None being heard. No vote will be necessary for the election of the council president. I think that we should probably have action there. Yeah, all those in favor of the motion for Becca Zerps to be council president, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Item 13.3 is election of council vice president. I'd open the floor to that nomination.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate Angela Wilkerson for council vice president.
We have a first by Becca nominating Angela Wilkerson for vice president. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. I'd open the floor to any other nominations for vice president. None being heard. No need for an election. All those in favor of the motion for Angela to be vice president, please indicate by stating yes.
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 Opposed to no. That motion carries. Item 14 is my report. And 14.1 is appointment of planning and zoning and the other committees. I'd like to take a small recess. With the appointment of committees, there are 4 committees that I want to make sure that we're equitable, yet with all the things that we have going on with council currently and the transition team, that we have some continuity there. So I'd like to take a moment and make sure that I could just look at my list here. So I will call a recess for a brief amount of time and we'll be back in here shortly. So we'll take a small break.
Just something to think about. We gotta figure out public bathrooms. Yeah, well, where are they going? Well, but what I'm saying is the public doesn't go there. Or is the door open?
No, it's not open. It's locked. Well, trip?
Working night shift full time, so screwed up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Didn't say anything to me at all, so.
We didn't talk about it. Tony texted me, I didn't talk about it. I didn't think I was probably elected.
It would have been tight. Apparently you weren't here at the time.
Reno.
This morning I stopped by.
Dude.